A family's holiday joy turned nightmare when the HOA sued them. Laughter vanished, but one neighbor's secret changed everything. What if your family's joy became a legal battlefield? The Johnsons thought they were safe, just lights, laughter, and tradition. But overnight, their dream home became a prison of threats and lawsuits. Every friend vanished, every dollar drained. Yet betrayal breeds resistance, and this family would not fall quietly. The Johnsons were the kind of family you'd wave to on your morning walk. 2 kids, a golden retriever, and a house filled with laughter. Their dream was simple: raise children in a safe, welcoming community. They weren't rich, but they built a life with care and sacrifice. Every December, their tradition lit up the block. Strings of lights, a glowing nativity, and a giant inflatable Santa. Nothing fancy, just heart, warmth, and the kind of joy that spread to neighbors. For the Johnsons, it wasn't just decoration. It was a reminder of gratitude, faith, and togetherness. But beneath the sparkle, quiet cracks already showed. The HOA had always been strict, too strict. Letters about grass length, warnings about trash cans left out. The Johnsons paid fines, smiled politely, and moved on. They believed kindness could keep the peace. What no one knew was how deep that power ran. Behind closed doors, the board whispered. They resented anyone who stood out. And the Johnsons, their lights shone brighter than rules could contain. Still, resilience was in their blood. Mom worked long shifts as a nurse. Dad balanced 2 jobs to keep dreams alive. The kids carried hope in their laughter. They thought they were just living a simple life. But destiny had written something larger. Something that would test them, break them, and perhaps awaken a fight no one expected. It began on an ordinary December morning. The Johnsons woke to laughter, coffee, and the glow of Christmas lights. But on the doorstep, a letter waited, cold, official, merciless. The HOA was suing them. The claim: their Christmas display violated community standards. Too large, too bright, too disruptive. Each word cut deeper than the last. And at the bottom, a demand: remove everything off face-crushing fines. At first, they thought it was a mistake. Surely no one could punish joy. But the next day, the threats grew louder. Court summons, legal jargon, thousands of dollars demanded. Neighbors they once called friends turned away. Some whispered the Johnsons had brought it on themselves. Others feared crossing the HOA's iron fist. Silence spread faster than the lights ever had. The Johnsons pleaded their case. They begged for reason, compromise, understanding. But every word was twisted, every plea ignored. The board painted them as reckless rule breakers. And the local news, they echoed the HOA's side. Fear crept in. Would they lose their home? Would the children's laughter fade into whispers of shame? But inside the fear, a spark flickered. Dad clenched his fists. Mom's voice trembled, but didn't break. If their family's joy was a crime, then fighting back was the only option. Yet injustice doesn't sleep. The judge said it started as any ordinary December morning. The Johnsons sipped coffee. Children ran through the living room. The glow of Christmas lights filled the house with warmth. Then the knock came. A letter slid under the door. The HOA was suing them. Their crime? Excessive decorations, they claimed. The letter threatened fines, legal fees, and court action. Confusion turned to disbelief. Neighbors, once friendly, now avoided eye contact. Some whispered judgment. Others sided quietly with the HOA. Even the local paper printed a story, framing the Johnsons as reckless troublemakers. Step by step, their ordinary world unraveled. Fines piled higher. Warnings became legal threats. The HOA twisted truth, framing minor infractions as evidence of defiance. Emails, photos, and complaints stacked against them like a wall. Fear clawed at their home. Would they lose everything they worked for? Would their children grow up ashamed of their own house? But amidst despair, a spark ignited. Mom whispered, "We can't let them win." Dad clenched his jaw, determination in his eyes. Their fight wasn't just for lights. It was for dignity, family, and freedom. Yet injustice still reigned. The court sided with the HOA. Fines escalated. Legal threats multiplied. Every attempt to reason met cold dismissal. And still, a quiet defiance lingered in their hearts. The Johnsons were beaten, but not broken. The battle had begun, and the HOA would soon discover joy is a fight worth defending. The Johnsons thought the nightmare ended with a lawsuit. They were wrong. Investigators arrived, notebooks in hand, cameras flashing. Every decoration, every string of lights was scrutinized. Flawed evidence piled up. Photos taken at odd angles, exaggerations in reports. The HOA whispered behind closed doors, confident no one would question them. Even the police seemed uneasy. Questions went unanswered. Calls for fairness were met with bureaucratic coldness. Every legal step was stacked against the Johnsons. Authorities, prosecutors, institutions, all leaned silently toward the HOA. The community, once warm, now felt divided. Neighbors whispered in hallways, stared from across lawns, picked sides quietly. Some avoided the Johnsons entirely. Some sent thinly veiled threats. Loneliness spread faster than the Christmas lights ever could. Media coverage added salt to the wound. Headlines called them reckless homeowners, defiant violators, the family that broke rules. The Johnsons' voices were drowned. Every TV story, every article seemed scripted to humiliate them. Despair sank deep. Mom cried quietly in the kitchen, clutching her children. Dad stared at the lights through the frosted window, fists tight, jaw set. But beneath the fear, resolve grew. They began documenting everything: receipts, photos, witnesses. Each injustice became a brick in their arsenal. Every false claim, every snare, fueled their determination. And then, one detail would later change everything. A misfiled document, a tiny oversight by the HOA, a neighbor who had been watching. It was small, almost invisible, but it held the power to unravel the board's entire case. The Johnsons realized the fight was bigger than them. Not just about lights, not just about fines. It was about truth, dignity, and standing against corruption. Though the world seemed against them, one thing was certain: justice could not stay buried forever. And when it resurfaced, the HOA wouldn't know what hit them. The courtroom was cold, intimidating, and suffocating. Rows of spectators whispered as the Johnsons entered. The judge barely looked up. The HOA lawyers radiated confidence, Smegs hiding cruelty. Every argument the Johnsons made was dismissed. Contradictions in the HOA's claims, ignored. Flawed evidence became gospel. Every plea for fairness bounced off walls of bureaucratic apathy. Fear gnawed at them. Would the home be taken? Would the children grow up believing justice was a lie? Outside, the community watched silently. Some secretly cheered. Some mourned with them. Hearts broke alongside the Johnsons. Even so, they refused to crumble completely. Mom's hands trembled, but she held her head high. Dad's jaw tightened, eyes burning with quiet defiance. They were battered, but unbroken. Then, as the HOA smugly presented yet another evidence packet, a voice interrupted. A neighbor, someone no one expected, stepped forward. Shocking testimony, details the board had hidden, overlooked, or manipulated. A tiny crack in the polished armor of corruption. The courtroom fell silent. The Johnsons' hearts raced. Could this single revelation shift the balance? Could truth pierce the veil of lies? For the first time, the fight seemed possible. The villains appeared to win, but even empires of deceit have cracks. And sometimes, it takes just one spark to ignite change. The verdict arrived like a thunderclap. The Johnsons had lost. Fines multiplied. Court orders demanded immediate removal of every decoration. The HOA smiled, triumphant, as if victory was theirs forever. Despite clawed at the family. Children stared at the now empty yard in shock. Mom sank into a chair, exhausted but unwilling to break. Dad's fists clenched, eyes blazing, defiance unshaken. Outside the courthouse, murmurs began to swell. Neighbors whispered. Passers-by shook their heads. Social media buzzed. Stories shared. Outrage growing. The villains celebrated too soon. Their power seemed absolute, untouchable. But the first seeds of rebellion had already been planted. One small voice, one brave neighbor, one overlooked detail could change everything. Injustice had won this battle, but not the war. The Johnsons' fight was far from over. Their lights might be darkened, but their spirit burned brighter than ever. And soon, the world would see that courage and truth can't be silenced forever. The Johnsons returned home to silence. The lights were gone. The inflatable Santa deflated in the yard. The glow of laughter had vanished. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. Some pitied them. Some quietly supported them. The HOA's grip seemed unshakable. Inside, the family grappled with heartbreak. Children asked why joy had turned into fear. Mom held them tight, whispering courage into trembling hearts. Dad paced, restless, planning the next move. Long-term trauma lingered, but resistance quietly grew. Every unfair letter, every court document became fuel. The Johnsons began documenting, speaking out, gathering allies. Voices from the community joined theirs, hesitant but rising. The battle wasn't over. Small acts of defiance appeared. A neighbor's lights left untouched. A local journalist asking questions. Hope intertwined with danger. The HOA watched, tense, as cracks in their authority began to widen. Through heartbreak, the Johnsons discovered something vital. Courage is contagious. Even the smallest acts of resistance can ignite a spark in others. The fight for fairness was no longer theirs alone. The hero was down, but the story wasn't over. Christmas lights could be removed. Fines could be levied. But the spirit of a family and the truth they fought to protect would shine long after the darkness faded. The Johnsons had lost a battle, yes, but every injustice planted a seed. And seeds, once planted, are difficult to uproot. Misfiled HOA documents surfaced. Evidence of corruption and intimidation came to light. The judge reversed the fines. The Johnsons were vindicated. Neighbors cheered. News outlets covered the triumph. The family's lights returned, brighter than ever. The HOA faced scrutiny, its authority shaken. Children laughed in the yard, their joy untamed. Mom and Dad hugged, tears of relief streaming. The community celebrated, rallying around truth and fairness. Against all odds, justice had broken through the lies. The Johnsons' courage proved that even bureaucracy can be challenged. This time, the lights shone not just for Christmas, but for truth. What if it were you? Your family's joy erased, your home under siege, and the world watching silently. The Johnsons faced unfairness few could imagine, and yet, they refused to be broken. If this story moved you, speak up, comment, share, and spread awareness. Challenge injustice wherever it hides.